So how do you know which business to buy? How? It's pretty simple, and we're gonna jump into it right in a few minutes from now. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Frederick. I'm an entrepreneur, business owner based here in Canada, Ontario, Canada. I run several businesses across Canada and the US. And if you're new, welcome to this channel. If you're a returning subscriber, I appreciate you, okay? Okay, let's jump into the meat of it. First things first, how do you know what business to buy? How do you know what business makes sense to go after? And I think it's the answer to that question is pretty simple. Every day in life, we see problems everywhere. People have problems, people have needs, people want to do different things, right? So the simple answer to that question in terms of how to know the business to buy is to first of all identify problems, okay? Once you are very observant and you know the kind of problems that people have and the kind of needs that people have, it pretty much just tells you the kind of solutions you can provide, which eventually turns to a business, right? So I'll give you a simple example. People need food to eat, right? Human beings can never survive without food. So what that tells you immediately is the fact that people who are into the food business are never going to run out of business because every day people are going to need food to eat. Another example is accommodation. People always need somewhere to live in. So what that also tells you is that as long as you're in the real estate business, providing shelter and accommodation to people, you're never going to run out of business because shelter, accommodation is something that people will always need. So the first thing to always do when you're trying to figure out what kind of business you want to go into is to first of all ask yourself that honest question. What are problems or challenges that people have that I can provide solutions for, right? If you think about it in this way, you will definitely start to see solutions. And then when you provide those solutions, you automatically deal with the problems, and therein lies your business. People will be willing to pay you money. People will be willing to pay in order to get that solution. And that can be turned into any business, right? So please focus on problems. For those of us who don't see problems, start to look for problems. If I were you, I will intentionally start to look for problems. In my own case, when I wanted to buy my first business here in Canada, which was a driving school, I first of all looked at the Canadian economy and I saw that, or the Canadian system, and I saw that nobody could come here and just jump into a vehicle and start driving. So I knew immediately that people will always require that service. People will always require the service of teaching them how to drive, whether you're just turning 16 or whether you're a new immigrant just getting to Canada and you're trying to get your first license. You can't just go into any vehicle and just jump into it and just start driving. So it was a no-brainer to see clearly that if I could provide a solution to solving that problem, people will be willing to pay monies in exchange for that service, right? The other business which I acquired, which is my home improvement business, Bathtub King, I also saw a gap in the construction business. There weren't a lot of trades who knew how to do their work properly, and there was a serious gap in the system with regard to having with regards to Canada having a lot of trades, right? Good trades. So I went into that business because I wanted to solve that problem. And in the process of solving that problem, people will be willing to pay you monies in exchange for that service. So that's pretty much it about the first step. Second step is to make sure that that business is actionable. It's something you can take action on. So if you're providing solutions, you also want to be sure that the solution you're providing is something that is actionable. So I'll give you an example. I used the food example in the first case, right? Where I said people have to eat, and therefore anybody who was trying to solve the problem of hunger would definitely have a business to run because people have to eat. In the same vein, if you're trying to solve that problem by providing food, you must be able to see that providing that solution to hunger is an actionable step. So I'll give you a real life example, right? If you go to Tim Hortons, for instance, or any of these eateries, right? People go there, they know what people like because people are always busy. They know the kind of foods that they provide, and they provide those foods at strategic locations so that people know how to reach them and people buy them. People even order them. So people don't even have to go there physically in order to get that service, right? So that's what I mean. Your solution has to be an actionable solution. So for instance, in the same example that I gave in the first part where I said people have to live in houses and people need accommodation, What that means is if you're providing a solution to that problem by providing rental houses, you have to make sure that it's possible to find those rental houses, those properties. You have to be able to make sure they're livable. You also have to make sure that people can live in them, and you have to make them affordable for people to live in. So those are some of the actionable steps that you can take in order to solve the food problem or the hunger problem or the accommodation problem, and then turn it to a business that is scalable. Of course, you want to run a business that you can also scale. Now, don't get me wrong, I know in business sometimes challenges come here and there, but it shouldn't stop the fact that your business should be actionable and your business should be scalable, such that if you decide to start with one unit or one business or one location, as you go along, you can scale from one location to maybe 2 or 3. You can also grow your business or expand your business into other things that are connected to food, for instance, or connected to accommodation. And who knows, there might be multiple streams of income in terms of that you can derive from just one business, okay? So make sure that it is scalable, actionable. So in my own real life example, for instance, in the driving school business, since I knew there was a business or a service that some people definitely needed, I then made sure that it was something that could continue to scale and then try to expand the business to include other areas. Like, for instance, instead of just servicing the young kids who were just learning how to drive, we also had an opportunity to also service corporate drivers who drive for FedEx, DHL, and all these courier companies, right? So make sure your business is actionable, make sure your business is scalable, and you will just be fine. The third point in terms of how to know the business to buy is make sure your business is recession proof, and irrespective of what happens in the economy, the business will be fine, right? Over the years, we've seen the economies go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. So it's not impossible for you to find yourself in a situation where the economy is not doing so well. You want to make sure that the business you're going to buy, or the business you're going into, is a business that can withstand such recessions. Recessions will come, they will come, because it's something that is completely out of our control. I know they have periodic intervals within which they come. They don't come every time, but they definitely come, right? So you have to make sure that your business is a business that is recession proof. And that's why it feeds into the first point, which is the problem you're trying to solve. The problem is, if the problem is something that people have to deal with, and you're providing the solution to deal with those problems, then it is inevitable. It is definitely something that people will always need. So whether there's recession or not, people will always come to you to look for that service. So make sure the business is recession proof, and that irrespective of what goes on in the economy, your business continues to run. One major thing that has come up in recent time, and is still plaguing everybody pretty much, and everybody's trying to adjust to it, is AI. So another thing that I have seen in recent time, like I said, is some businesses have been wiped out because of AI. So one of the things you have to also pay attention to is AI. You have to make sure that the business you're going into is a business that cannot be taken by AI, cannot be replaced by AI, pretty much, right? There are some businesses that are cast in stone that you know that no matter what happens, it's going to be difficult for AI to do them or replace them. So for instance, if you're acquiring a landscaping business, for instance, or a snow plowing business, I don't see AI doing those kind of things, right? I mean, maybe in a gazillion years from now, but for now, to the foreseeable future, I don't see AI replacing those kind of businesses, right? For instance, the food business, like I mentioned earlier on, I don't see AI replacing anything that has to do with that. The construction business, anything that has to do with construction, real estate, I don't see AI replacing them. But there's some businesses that are at risk just because of AI. So a business, for instance, that has to do with script writing, for instance. So a script writer's business is definitely at risk, because people can just jump on their AI platforms today and just draft a script or do a script or just prompt AI to do a script for them. So those kind of businesses, for instance, are businesses that are subject to risk because of things like AI. So we have to pay attention to AI. Don't ignore it. Please do not ignore it. It is here to stay. I think it's only going to get worse as time goes on, because technology just keeps advancing. So, of course, if you're looking for a business to buy, you have to scrutinize it and be sure that it is not something that AI can replace. And it's easy to just simply assess that. Just look at the business and see, look at the business, the way the business runs from end to end, and see if it's something that AI can replace. If the answer is no, then you can proceed. But if the answer is yes, AI can replace this, then you have to step back, think about it before you take any step, okay? Anyways, those are the three major things that I want to draw our attention to in relation to what to look for when you're trying to decide what business to buy. Of course, this has nothing or does not take anything away from all the basic and regular things that you're supposed to look into in relation to buying a business, like their financials, their legal, the incorporated status, whether they have lawsuits pending and so on, what the operations is like, and what the staff team members look like, right? This has nothing to do with all that. You also have to pay attention to all those things and make sure that they are fine, right? These are the three things that I usually advise, three major things that I usually advise my clients to look out for when you're trying to make a decision in terms of what, in terms of what business to buy. And as long as you pay attention to these three things, I think you should be fine, okay? That's it. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for watching. If you want to hit me up